Okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. Wanted to take an opportunity to address, an issue that is pretty much ongoing in the Islamic community. And hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, after, what has been presented by some of the other brothers who have, already spoken about this issue, I was just kind of made privy to the issue just recently. And it was kind of disturbing, some of the comments that I heard that were made, both from, the side of the person who actually made the comment and then those who defended them. And it's actually sad, honestly, as a Muslim community that we're sitting here while Muslims are being slaughtered all over the world, that we're sitting here debating over, whether a comment was offensive, whether it wasn't offensive, whether it was, whether it was racist or not racist. This is, it just speaks volumes to where we are as a ummah right now, that we sitting here even having this discussion, man. Nonetheless, we got to go through it to go through it. So the title of my discussion today is called "The Cruelest Lies Are Often Conveyed in Silence." And that's a quote. The cruelest lies are often, conveyed in silence, meaning sometimes it's not what the person is saying, it's what the person is not saying that hurts the most. We kind of concentrate so much on what is apparent and what the person is saying versus what the person didn't say. And what they didn't say is actually more heinous, more egregious, and more vile than what they actually did say. And that's what we're going to focus on today. All right, so we're talking about the reality of latent racism in the Islamic community. So after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as he deserves to be praised and sending salat and salam upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I want to begin by saying that sometimes a person can tell us the vilest untruth, not in so much what he's saying, but in what he is not saying. Sometimes the most vile untruth can be told and what the person is not saying, not so much what the person is saying. So we concentrate so much on what is apparent and what the person is saying rather than what the person is not saying, the implications of their words. All right, the implications of their words. And sometimes that has more of an impact than, and it's actually sometimes more sinful than what is actually coming out of your mouth. As the Prophet ﷺ told Mu'adh bin Jabal when he said, will we be held accountable, O Messenger of Allah, for what we say? This is the statement of Mu'adh bin Jabal to the Prophet ﷺ. He said, will we be held accountable for what we say? And the Prophet ﷺ said to him, ثَقِلَتْكَ أُمُّكَ يَا مُعَاذ هَلْ يَكُبُّ النَّاسِ عَلَى مَنَاخِرِهِمْ وَعَلَى وُجُوهِهِمْ فِي النَّارِ إِلَّا حَصَائِدْ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ إِلَّا مِنْ حَصَائِدِ أَلْسِنَتِهِمْ. The Prophet ﷺ said, O Mu'adh, may your mother and your father be ransomed for you. He said, is there anything else that topples people on their faces into the hellfire than the harvest of their tongue? Is there anything else that topples people on their faces and sometimes on their necks in the hellfire except the harvest of their tongue? Not so much the actual words that you say, but the implications of your words. How your words impact other people. So sometimes we get caught up in what he said, it wasn't racist. It didn't seem like it was racist to me. It's not so much what the person is saying. It's the implication of their words, what their words are referring to, what they are not saying. And that is far more egregious, far more vile than what the person is saying. So we are living in the times of unembellished deceit. We don't even got to hide it anymore. We're living in blatant times of unembellished, blatant deceit. A time that the Prophet ﷺ have already warned us about when he said, Sanawat sayati ala nas, sanawat khida'at فيها يصدق فيها الكاذب يكذب فيه الصادق. The Prophet ﷺ said that there is going to soon come upon you years of deceit, times of deceit. سيأتي على الناس سنوات خداعات. They're going to come upon people times, years of deceit, where in that time the person who is truthful will be considered a liar, and the person who is a liar will be considered truthful. These are the times that we're living in right now. These are the times that we're living in right now. I could tell you, and the thing about truth is that it is so, undesirable to people that we will accept falsehood, light years before we will ever accept the truth. I can sit here right now and tell you the truth. Anybody else can open up and tell you blatant truth, clear, pristine truth, and you still won't accept it. But somebody can get up and lie, and we'll accept it like it's nothing. We don't need any evidence. We don't need any proof. We don't need nothing because it's a lie, and we love being lied to. We love being lied to. We hate the truth so much that if the truth is staring you right in your face, we still don't accept it. We still won't accept it, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Sayati ala nas sanawat khida'at." They're going to come upon a time, upon people where there will be years of deceit, unembellished, blatant deceit, where the truthful person during that time will be considered a liar, and a liar during that time will be considered truthful. He continued by saying, وَيُؤْتَمَنُ فِيهِ فِيهَا الْخَائِنُ وَيُخَوَّنُ فِيهِ الْأَمِينُ, that the that the deceitful person, the untrustworthy person, will be considered trustworthy, and the person that is trustworthy will be considered untrustworthy. He said, وَيَنْطُقُ فِيهَا الرَّوَيْبِضَةُ, and the Rawaybidah will begin to speak. And the Prophet ﷺ, he had a habit of using terms, using words that were foreign to the Sahaba, that were, they weren't used to hearing, so that this is a teaching method, so that they could ask for more clarification, so he could continue, right? If I say something and you don't understand it, today we're not going to ask for clarification. We're just going to put our own spin on it, and we're going to run with it and say, oh, he said this, oh, he meant that, right? Because we can interpret people's, right? We can interpret people's intentions. We know what you intended today. We know what you meant by it. We know everything. You know what I mean? We know, we got it all figured out. During that time, if the Prophet ﷺ said something that they didn't understand, they would ask for more clarification. So he said, وَيَنْطِقُ فِيهَا الرَّوَيْبِضَةُ, and the Rawaybidah will begin to speak during that time. So the Sahaba asked the Prophet ﷺ, وَمَنْ هُمْ الرَّوَيْبِضَةُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, who are the Rawaybidah, O Messenger of Allah? And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, الرَّجُلُ التَّافِهُ فِي أَمْرِ الْعَامَةِ أو يتكلم في أمر العامة. The Prophet ﷺ, he said the Rawaybidah is men of insignificant value with authority to speak about the affairs of the common folk. Pay attention to that, because that means a lot in the discussion that we're having right now. The Rawaybidah. We're talking about people who are insignificant. Their value is very insignificant. This individual that we're talking about today, his value in the people, in the larger Islamic community, Wallah al-Azim, I never even knew this brother existed. And that's not to say that he's nobody, right? I'm not trying to say that he's nobody because I didn't know him. I'm just saying on the larger scale of public speaking, I've never heard of this brother before in my life. Never heard of him before in my life. And I was very reluctant to even speak about this matter, because sometimes this is the way people become famous. We make people get famous, right? I open up my Periscope, I got 1,000 and some odd people sitting here listening to me, and I mention this brother's name, and then everybody goes back to YouTube, everybody go back to his Facebook page. I just made you famous. So this is why sometimes I personally am reluctant or apprehensive about speaking about anybody and mentioning anybody's name, especially if it doesn't necessarily directly involve me. I'm reluctant to say anything because I'm tired of making people famous. The moment you speak about them, they become famous. And the scholars, they have, a maxim. They have a phrase that they say, khalif tu'raf. The quickest way to gain, familiarity, the quickest way to gain, popularity is to go against the grain. All you got to do is say something that is unpopular, and then you become popular. You say something that is unpopular and automatically you become popular. This is how students of knowledge are able to, instead of doing it the old-fashioned grassroots way, coming home, graduating from your respected university, coming home, putting in work on the ground, visiting masajid, giving lectures, for free, and, putting in work. Putting in that grassroots work, and then after the years go by, people learn to trust you, people learn to respect you, people watch you grown, you know what I mean? Like, we don't want that. We want to come home after being in Yemen for 20 years, right? And come home and become famous and find the most popular student of knowledge, right? And then we attack him. Right? And I'm talking about, the brother from Yemen. I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not going to make him famous because he's really a nobody. But I'm talking about the brother who just attacked Muhammad Mufti. You've been in Yemen for 20 years, and the best that you can offer after 20 years is to come back to America and attack one of our own. To attack one of our own. Like, that's your claim to fame? That's your claim to fame after 20 years of studying? You've got to be kidding me. Anybody would be a fool for sitting at your feet. If you sat at the feet of scholars, you sat in Yemen for 20 years, and the best that you can offer is to come home and attack a prominent, imam or scholar or student of knowledge in our environment that is actually benefiting people. There's nobody who hasn't sat with Muhammad Mufti and can say that they did not benefit from him. He's actually benefiting people. Helping people to refine their lives. And the best that you can offer after 20 years of sitting in Yemen is to come home. What a loss of ilm. What a loss of a soul. Your soul is lost, man. You need to go find that joint. Serious. And it's sad. Anyway, moving right along. So sometimes, we make a person famous. So I personally was reluctant to even speak about this issue because I don't want to make this dude famous. But unfortunately, his comments have already made him famous. Not in the way that I'm sure, not in the way that he wanted to be, but it is what it is. This is what happens, right? All right. So George Orwell, right? Famous author, revolutionary, if you would call him. George Orwell, he said, in a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. In a time of deceit, we're living in times of deceit. In times of deceit, telling the truth is revolutionary. And that's what we're doing here today. We're just going to lay it all out on the table. Like it who like it, don't like it who don't like it. It really doesn't matter to me one way or the other. But we're going to have this conversation. Unfortunately, the recent rants of this brother Abu Ibrahim from the UK, his recent rants have opened the door for some very important discussions about race, racism, and race relations in the Islamic community that apparently we were not ready to confront, but is staring us right in our face, and there's no way around it at this point. The very careless method in which he chose to address such a delicate issue and the counterproductive impact that it had on Muslims, all of the Muslims that, that heard it, proves without a shadow of a doubt that the discussions on racism in the Islamic community is much needed and long overdue. Long overdue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us in the Quran to exercise justice and fairness when we speak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages us or instructs us in the Quran to exercise justice when we speak, which includes gross generalities that serve as a broad brush broad brush statements about one culture or another that paint them as monolithic. I think Brother Talib Alexander, Hafidhullah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him and reward him for, his attempt to address this issue, man. He said that, black culture, African American culture, or Afro-Caribbean culture, if you're in the UK or if you're in Canada or any place in the West or in North America, black culture is not monolithic. We're not all one, so that you broad brush our entire culture with one brush, right? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to speak with justice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding us to avoid gross generalities that include everybody from a particular culture or one culture or another and paint them with a broad brush across the spectrum. We are not the same, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَإِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَاعْدِلُوا وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى وَبِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ أَوْفُوا ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, and when you speak, exercise justice. إِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَاعْدِلُوا وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى. That when you speak, exercise justice and fairness. Fairness. When you speak, exercise fairness and justice. وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى, even if it concerns your near relative. وَبِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ أَوْفُوا, and the covenant of Allah, the trust of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fulfill that. ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. And this is what Allah instructs you, so perhaps you may take a reminder. Abu Ibrahim, I'm speaking to you, brother. Perhaps you may take a reminder from this ayat. وَمَنْ أَصْدَقُ مِنَ اللَّهِ قِيلًا, and who could be more truthful in their speech than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Exercise justice when you speak. Stop painting an entire culture with one broad brush. Your comment, let's not talk like blacks, like black people. Let's speak in a more decent manner than that. Let's be more mannerable. You have broad brushed an entire group of people with one broad stroke, as if all black people are the same. That is not the justice that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to exercise when we speak. Stop using generalities. All black people are like this, and we're all guilty of that to some degree. Even us as African Americans, we say Pakistanis are like this or Arabs are like this, and we got to stop broad brushing people's cultures, man. It's not fair. It's not right when they do it to us, and it's not right for us to do it to anybody else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to exercise justice. إِذَا قُلْتُمْ فَاعْدِلُوا, that when you speak, exercise justice. وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى, even if it's against your own family member, exercise justice. All right, so I will address this issue by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by highlighting the following points of concern. 5 points, inshallah ta'ala. Please stay with me. Stay with me. If you don't have the ability to stay with me, then after the lecture is over, it's on Periscope, it's on Facebook Live, and I'll post it to YouTube, inshallah ta'ala, and we'll have an opportunity, you guys can have an opportunity to go back and listen to what I'm saying, sentence for sentence. The first thing that I want to address is political correctness. Political correctness. As a Muslim community, it seems like we try so hard to be politically correct about everything. As a Muslim community, as an ummah, it almost seems like we try to be politically correct about everything, right? At the expense of being Islamically incorrect. You understand? When you try to be politically correct, sometimes that, jeopardizes you being Islamically correct. We placate the feelings of other people, right? We placate the feelings of others while harboring contradictory feelings of our own, and it is the ultimate manifestation of being two-faced, a quality that the Prophet ﷺ described as unbefitting for paradise. Stop being politically correct, because when you're politically correct in front of everybody, and then you go behind the scenes and you expose your real self, this is the ultimate manifestation of being two-faced. It's phony and it's being two-faced. You come out and you say, we're all one ummah, I'm not racist or whatever, and then behind closed doors, you're saying something totally different. You can't serve two masters. You're absolutely right. You can't serve your nafs, you can't serve your desires, and then turn around and serve your Lord. You got to choose one. You can't serve your desires, and you can't serve your Lord at the same time. You got to choose one. Absolutely. But this whole idea of being politically correct and coming out in front of the masses and saying one thing but harboring something else in the inside, it's the equivalent of being two-faced. A quality or a characteristic that the Prophet ﷺ said that the person who possesses this quality will not enter into Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La yadkhulul Jannah dhu wajhain." The person who has two faces will not enter into paradise. So here again, the Sahaba asked, وَمَنْ هُوَ ذُو وَجْهَيْنِ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ? Who are the people who have two faces, O Messenger of Allah? And the Prophet ﷺ clarified. He said, الَّذِي يَأْتِي هَؤُلَاءِ بِوَجْهٍ وَهَؤُلَاءِ بِوَجْهٍ. This is the type of person that wants everybody to like them. He goes to this group of people with one face, and he goes to this group of people with another face. وَإِذَا لَقُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قَالُوا آمَنَّا وَإِذَا خَلَوْا إِلَى شَيَاطِينِهِمْ قَالُوا إِنَّا مَعَكُمْ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُسْتَهْزِئُونَ. It's like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm not calling a person a hypocrite, although this is a quality of hypocrisy. I'm not calling the person a hypocrite, right? I'm not calling a person a hypocrite, but what I am saying is that being two-faced is a quality of a munafiq, a quality of hypocrisy. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, a person who goes to this group of people with one face, and goes to this group of people with another face. He wants everybody to like him. You have some, including students of knowledge, who don't take a position on anything. When they asked about it, I don't know, go ask the scholars, whatever. You don't take a position on nothing. And that is the benefit, the luxury of still considering yourself a student of knowledge. When you're a leader, when you consider yourself a leader, you don't have a right not to take a position on anything. Because to be complicit in the face of blatant tyranny and oppression, you have already chosen the side of the oppressor. To sit back and say nothing. This is why the title is "The Cruelest Lies Are Often Told in Silence." When you sit back and you say nothing, you are the biggest liar, because you are playing it up like you are for the people, when in fact your silence means that you are not for the people. You understand? And you have so many Muslim students of knowledge and pseudo leaders or whatever they consider themselves. I mean, like they don't take a stand on anything. Nothing. What's your stance on police brutality? What's your stance on, racism in America? What's your stance on Donald Trump? What's your stance on, I don't get involved with politics, or I don't know about this, or you have to ask the scholars, or I don't know. You don't know, right? But when it comes to trivial matters of the deen, if this person is Salafi, is this person on it, this person off it, you got to answer for all of that. MashaAllah. You got to answer for all of that. But you don't take a stance on anything. Nothing. How long are you going to dance around the issues before you stand up like a man and you choose the side of those who are oppressed and you advocate for those who don't have a voice? That was the message. That was the mission of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Understand that. But, anyway. So, we want to be politically correct. The Prophet ﷺ said, "La yadkhulul Jannah dhu wajhain." The person who has two faces will not enter into paradise. This is as a result of being politically correct. In front of the people, you want to be one way, but behind closed doors, you're right? You want to be something, you want to be who you really are behind closed doors, but in the front of the people, you want to say one thing. The Prophet ﷺ said the person who has two faces is the one who goes to this group of people with one face, and he goes to this group of people with another face. That's not our deen. The Prophet ﷺ, he said very clearly, "Man iltamas ridha Allah bi sakhatin nas kafahu Allahu ma'unatin nas." That whoever seeks to please God, seeks to please Allah at the expense of angering the people, then Allah will suffice him from needing the people. But whoever seeks to please the people at the expense of angering Allah, then Allah will leave him to the people. That means that you gotta take a position. You can't sit back and say, oh, I don't consider the brother racist. Well, then what the hell else is he? What else is he if he's not a racist? I mean, like, you know, I don't get it. Like, you sit here saying, well, I wouldn't say the brother is a racist. Then what the hell else is he? What else is he? I mean, like, come on, man, with the political correctness, man. Take a stance on something, man. Take a stance. What are you afraid of? Subhanallah al-Azim, man. Meaning they want to be liked by all parties at the expense of being liked by nobody. Sometimes you want to be liked by everybody at the expense of being liked by nobody. Because nobody respects you. Because you don't take a position on anything. Sometimes people will respect you even if you go against them. You understand? Sometimes I respect the person that takes a position against me, especially if he does it based upon ilm, based upon knowledge, based upon his own understanding. I have nothing but the utmost respect for a person. Nobody respects a yes man. Some people seek to please everybody at the expense of angering everybody. Understand that. Facts, man. Facts. We want to say what, you know, pleases everybody. We want to say what pleases everybody. Anyway, meaning they want to be liked by all at the expense of being liked by none. How do you make a public apology? Abu Ibrahim, I'm talking to you directly, brother. How do you make a public apology, right? And then turn around in a private WhatsApp group and identify yourself leading with, I'm the one who made the black statement. I made the black comment, right? How do you come out in public, right? He gave a public apology that I'm not a racist. I didn't intend by that to offend anybody. And then in a private WhatsApp group, as Brother Talib Alexander mentioned, that in a private WhatsApp group, he comes in and identifies himself as the one who made the black statement, right? Okay, cool. All right, and then to make matters worse, he turned around and he started to make himself the victim, right? These are his words. I'm giving you Abu Ibrahim's words. Pay attention to his words, right? He said, this fitna, which he started by his words, right? His public rant about not acting like black people, right? He started it. He said, this fitna has identified a stinking attitude from many black brothers, right? That just even the words, it just makes me cringe. Right? He doesn't say Afro-Caribbean. He don't identify you as your ethnicity. He identifies you as a color. Right? He said, this fitna has identified a stinking attitude from many black brothers who have been harboring these festering thoughts and suspicions about their brothers in Islam and have only been waiting for a slip-up. That's what he called it. He called his comment a slip-up. That wasn't a slip-up, Abu Ibrahim. For you to publicly say to your brethren, right? You said publicly, let's not act like black people. Let's not act like black people. We're better than that. Let's have decent manners. That's what you said in public. You said this in public. That BBC and some of these other stations have now gotten a hold of and have now shopped it to the world. You made that statement. And then you sit here now playing the victim, talking about, oh, you know, black brothers have been harboring, you know, these festering thoughts and suspicions about their brothers in Islam and have only been waiting, right, for a slip up. That's what you called it, a slip up. You making this public rant about being like black people is a slip up? You gotta be kidding me, man. It's more like a reality of who you really are. It's more like a reality of who you really are. That ain't a slip up. A slip up is saying Allah said and it was actually a hadith. Or a hadith and it was actually an ayah from the Quran. That's a slip up. A slip up is not you in public saying to people, don't act like black people. That's not a slip up. That is the reality of who you are. And I'm not offended by that. I'm cool with that. I'm cool in my space, man. I don't have a problem with that. However, the Islamic community has to stop overlooking the fact that latent racism exists, and we're going to call it out when we see it. We're going to call it out when we see it. He said, this fitna has identified a stinking attitude from many black brothers who have been harboring these festering thoughts and suspicions about their brothers in Islam and have only been waiting for a slip up so they can unleash a barrage of stupid insults, slurs, and general racist behaviors. This is none other than, Brother Abu Ibrahim, this is none other than what is called reverse racism. This is called reverse racism. You guys are going to get a lesson in racism today. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me the ability to finish this lecture, by the time I'm done, you guys will have a full-fledged lesson in racism. This is what is called reverse racism. So this is lesson number 1. Reverse racism, where you are now playing the victim, accusing black brothers of being racist. And I really don't understand how black people can be racist. We are the most loving. We are the most forgiving, the most tolerant. I mean, to the point of coonery. To the point of coonery. We'll forgive, you know what I mean? Like, we'll go on CNN, we'll come out, you know, our whole family was just slaughtered. We'll come out talking about, I forgive the person who killed them, and I'm not taught to hate my enemy. Like, I mean, to the point of a fault. We are the most forgiving, tolerant, loving race of people on the face of this earth. It's unfortunate that many of you who are not African American and do not have a close relationship with African Americans, that you have bought into this stereotype that has been fed to the world that we're somehow animals. That we're somehow animals and the worst scum on the face of the earth. And it's sad that you have accepted that. It's sad that you have accepted that. You understand? We are the most loving, forgiving, compassionate, tolerant race of people. You can go into the hood where there's gangsters, drug dealers, gang members, and somebody can be oppressed, and we will be the first people to rush to their defense. We don't care what your color is, what your nationality is, nothing. We will run to your defense, to our own fault, because we're the ones that are going to jail. I know firsthand, the same ones that you call thugs and gang members and all of these, some of them are the most compassionate, merciful people you can come in contact with. They have a dilemma, and until you can understand their why, don't sit from a place of privilege and judge them, man. Don't sit, you've bought into this American narrative that we're somehow animals or the lowest scum on the face of the earth, man. Anyway, this is what is called reverse racism. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to reverse racism, where we say, oh, you guys are racist. And sometimes we do it to ourselves. It's really mind-boggling how another black man can refer to another black man as a racist, a nationalist. I really don't get that. It just puzzles me. But anyway, this is the ultimate role reversal. This is the ultimate role reversal, and still allows you, Abu Ibrahim, to take zero accountability for your irresponsibility. You are a public speaker, and as such, as a public speaker, there comes a certain responsibility, a certain social responsibility that comes along with being a public speaker. The same thing I said about Hamza Yusuf to Hamza Yusuf. The same thing I said in my article to Hamza Yusuf. The same thing. You are irresponsible as a public speaker to allow those words to come out of your mouth. It proves your irresponsibility socially as a public speaker. The same with Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, who came back to apologize for his breakdown of the black family. He said that the reason why the black community is the way that it is because the breakdown of the black family. It was just like really simple. It was like really simple mathematics for Hamza Yusuf to sit back from a place of privilege and say that the breakdown of the black community is as a result of the breakdown of the black family. Just, one and done. That solves all the problems. It's just the breakdown of the black family. It's not the systematic racism that we have been subjected to. It is not the generational trauma that our children, grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren will continue to be haunted by. It's not the police brutality. Hamza Yusuf said there is no police brutality in the black community. You understand? He said there is no such thing as police brutality. And he justified that by saying the murder of black people kill more black people than police do. That was Hamza Yusuf's comment. He said in the black community, black people kill more black people than police officers. And based upon that, there is no such thing as police brutality in the black neighborhood. MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Interesting take from somebody who's a scholar. This is a scholar, someone who people, and maybe he should stick to speaking about Islamic issues and leave the issues, the social issues of our environment to those who, who specialize in those issues. With all due respect. I say that with all due respect. Anyway, he said half of the murder of blacks are committed by blacks. And by saying that he is not a racist, because he has black friends. Hamza Yusuf doubled back and said, I'm not a racist because I have black friends, right? I have black friends, mashallah. So you apologize to blacks for your latent racist comments and then justify that you are not a racist by the fact that you have black friends, right? Or in the case of Abu Ibrahim victimizing himself, saying that black brothers have been waiting for him to make one slip so they can, come on, man. Yeah, what you're doing is this is the ultimate role reversal. You don't get to, now I'm saying all due respect to him it's not a personal attack on him. This is not personal. I'm just dealing with the facts. He is a scholar. Islamic scholar. I'm not taking that away from him. But I'm saying as it relates to his comments on these issues, nah, sorry. No scholarship there. Not in my eyes. That's not the statement of a scholar. The more knowledgeable you become, the more merciful and compassionate and understanding you become. You don't get to sit from you don't get to sit from a place of privilege and just psychoanalyze a whole entire nation of people. Come on, man. All right. So political correctness will have you contradicting your own beliefs to prove to everyone that you are not who they think you are. If we stop trying so hard to be politically correct and focus on being genuinely correct, we wouldn't have to keep issuing apologies and making mockery of ourselves and the religious beliefs that contradict our latent racist sentiments about black Muslims. Now, it wasn't poor choice of words. It was not a poor choice of words. It was not a poor choice of words. He spoke exactly how he felt. Here we go again. Give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm sorry. I beg to differ. You can give him the benefit of the doubt. Because his apology was just as bad as the initial statement. His apology was just as bad as the initial statement. You can give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm sorry. I see things as they are. When a person shows you who they really are, believe them. Understand? That's my philosophy. I function from that place. I'm sorry, I don't share your sentiments. You can give him as many benefit of the doubts as you want. As far as myself is concerned, I'm sorry. Nah, that doesn't deserve a benefit of the doubt. And but be honest with you, it was nothing to apologize for. The political correctness, if you following what I'm saying, the political correctness is what got these brothers jumping out there apologizing, making mockery for themselves, issuing apologies and making mockery of themselves and contradicting themselves over and over again because of the political correctness. Just stand in your space. Just stand in your space and accept it exactly as it is. You don't like black culture. You understand what I'm saying? Just like, it's cool. I don't have a problem with that. Let me educate you. Let me educate you. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and this is the problem. Because Indo-Pak Muslim leaders, Arab Muslim leaders, and many Caucasian converts who have reached a level of scholarship, they feel like they're more superior than us. We can't teach them anything, even about our own culture. Even about our own culture. We can't teach them anything. They got it all figured out. They know what our problem is. They know what our dilemma is. They've already psychoanalyzed what our problems are. And the problems are, you know, related to, you know, just simple matters of family and, you know, you guys lack, you know, education and resources and blah, blah, blah to the end of it. You got all our issues figured out. Same thing with many of the scholars who issue fatwas about things that are going on in our communities, our societies. Never take the time out to figure out, you know, who are these people? Who are African Americans? What is their dilemma? What is the problem going on in their communities? They just issue fatwas, one after another, fragmenting and separating and, you know, separating our communities until they are fragmented in little sects and groups, and then turn around and say, oh, don't break into different parties and sects, be one ummah, be one. Come on, how are we going to be one ummah when you done issue so many contradicting fatwas that have separated and fragmented family members, man. I'm not talking about just communities, I'm talking about families. And then turn around and say, oh, be on one accord. Be all the Muslims are one ummah. How the hell are we supposed to be one ummah when you issuing 50 contradicting, fatwas, Islamic edicts and rulings that are filtered into our communities? You are a walking contradiction, man. You are a walking contradiction. Be one ummah. We're all one ummah. How are we all one ummah? And you done separated our whole entire community. And then turn around and say, be one ummah. Don't break into different parties and sects when you have already created different parties and sects. Don't pray at this masjid. Don't be with these brothers. Don't be over here. Stay away from the masjids of Ahlul Bid'ah. Stay away from this. And meanwhile, never defining who Ahlul Bid'ah are. Meanwhile, never defining who the masajid of Ahlul Bid'ah are. Never defining any of these terms. Leaving it open for interpretation for ignoramuses like some of these individuals who barely have a high school diploma to sit back and interpret to you who Ahlul Bid'ah are. Who the masajid of Ahlul Bid'ah are. It's open for interpretation, and the devil is in the details. Gotta be kidding me, man. Gotta be kidding me. So when you talk about giving somebody the benefit of the doubt, man, you can give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't come to me with that sympathetic, I'm sorry. Been there, done that. I'm so past that. Please. So political correctness will have you contradicting your own beliefs to prove to everybody else that you are not who they think you are. If we stop trying so hard to be politically correct and focus on being genuinely correct, we wouldn't have to keep issuing apologies and making mockery of ourselves and the religious beliefs that contradict our latent racist sentiments about black Muslims. It is also politically correct to say, I'm tired of black people always playing the victims of racism. Other cultures have been victims of racism too, right? Here again, reverse racism. This is from the statement of Abu Ibrahim. In his own words, he said, I'm tired of black people always playing the victims of racism. Other cultures have been victims of racism too. Right. Another example of reverse racism. So basically, you're going to dismiss all of my pain because I'm not the only person that has been through that. He said, I'm tired of black people always playing the victim of racism. And believe it or not, this is not the first time that I've heard someone who is non-black, non-African American, non-Afro-Caribbean say the same exact thing. They believe that we are milking, right, the victimization, right, that we have been subjected to. They believe you have many Muslims who are not African American, East Asian, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, you name it, Arab. Many of them believe that as African Americans, we should get over the fact that we were victims of racism because they are victims of racism too. Anyway, moving right along. Our religion teaches us to validate the pain of others, not to dismiss it. When Asma bint Umays returned from Ethiopia to Medina, Umar bin Khattab anhu said to her, we, meaning those who migrated with the Prophet ﷺ from Mecca to Medina, are more deserving of the Prophet ﷺ than you are. Dismissing her, totally dismissing her experience, right? She Asma bint Umays and her husband, who was Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, Ja'far's brother, they migrated from Mecca to Ethiopia, to Abyssinia first. And then they went back to Mecca, and then went back to Ethiopia, and then finally to get to Medina, right? 15 years later, they got to Medina. And then to have Umar bin Khattab anhu just completely dismiss all of her experiences right there. He said, we, those who migrated from Mecca to Medina, we have more right to claim the Prophet ﷺ than you are. And it was offensive. It was offensive. She felt like her struggles and all of those who toiled alongside of her during that tumultuous journey from Mecca to Abyssinia were being dismissed. Asma went to the Prophet ﷺ and informed him. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Umar is mistaken. They only have one reward while you guys have two rewards. The Prophet ﷺ validated her experiences, man. You don't sit here talking about, oh, I'm tired of black people always playing the victim. Other people are victims. You know, why do y'all keep talking about slavery? Slavery been over 1,400 years ago. Slavery is alive and well. Where you at? Slavery is alive and well. But Umar radiallahu anhu dismissed Asma's experience, her whole experience, man. He dismissed her whole experience. He said, we are more deserving of the Prophet than you did. We migrated with him from Mecca to Medina, and y'all went to Ethiopia. Just completely dismissing her experience. And this is sometimes what people do to African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans. You understand? Just completely dismiss their experiences like it's nothing because you didn't have that experience. So you say, why do y'all keep talking about racism? Anyway, moving right along. So the Prophet ﷺ, he validated Asma's experience. He said, no, they only have one reward. You guys have two rewards. He validated her. People, you can't dismiss people's experiences, man, because you're sitting from a place of privilege because you didn't have that experience. All right. So that's the first point. The first point was what? Political correctness. Number two, latent racism. What is latent racism? This is a more subtle and hidden form of racism that tends to manifest in silence, in the silence of words. In the silence of words. It wasn't so much Abu Ibrahim. It wasn't so much what you said that was offensive. It was what you didn't say that was more offensive. And that is what is called latent racism. Hidden, undercover, subtle racism that seems to, rear its ugly head in comments like this, right? When Abu Ibrahim, I hope you're listening. If you're not listening, I hope you get this recording because I'm speaking directly to you, brother. When you said, let's stop talking like we're black. These are your words, quotes. You said, let's stop talking like we're black. Let's talk in a decent way with decent manners. Those are your words. That's what you said. What you said is not as offensive as what you didn't say. The hidden racism that lies deep within the words that you didn't actually say. So the problem with these words are not what they mean, but what they implicate. What are the implications of let's stop talking like we're black? That was your comment. Let's stop talking like we're black. Let's talk in a decent way. Let's talk with manners. Those were your words. What are you actually saying here? What are you not saying? What are you not saying? Right? So the problem with these words are not what they mean, but what they implicate. What are you really saying when you say, let's stop talking like we're black? What are you really saying? And where did these sentiments come from? Where did they come from? They came from a place. It wasn't just, you didn't just grab these out of a bag just randomly. Black equals indecent. Very good. Now we're getting to the implications of your words. You hear what I'm saying? Black people are not decent. They don't have good manners. Very good. Keep going. We're talking about the implications of your words. Let's talk about what your words implicate, what they really mean. Right. Racism has many layers, brothers and sisters. I want you guys to pay attention. For those of you who are black and those of you who are not black, because it seems that those of us who are African American, Afro-Caribbean, we got the game twisted too. We got the game twisted too. Let's talk like we're white. Very good, Shaka. Let's talk like we're white. Let's talk like white people. Let's stop talking like we're black. Meaning inferior. Thank you, Malik. MashaAllah. Very good. So now what you guys are doing is using critical thinking. That's what you're doing. You're critically analyzing what you're hearing. Black people don't speak well. Very good. Very good. That black people couldn't speak with intelligence. Very good. Okay, so where did this statement come from? Where did it emerge from? And then I'm going to give you a list of different forms of racism, and then you can tell me where this statement falls in. All right. So racism has many layers, brothers and sisters, and it's far more sophisticated today than it was in the past. Similar to modern forms of idolatry, shirk doesn't look today like it looked yesterday. Shirk is shirk. All right. Idolatry is idolatry, but it's more sophisticated today than it was yesterday. All right. Shirk today is not going to resemble that of yesterday, prostrating to trees, graves, and statues. Right. Nobody's prostrating to a statue or to a tree. All right. However, idolatry is alive and well. It just takes on a different, more sophisticated form, just like racism. A person doesn't have to be a card-carrying member of the KKK to perpetuate innocuous acts of racism. He doesn't have to be a card-carrying Ku Klux Klan member, right, to perpetuate innocuous acts of racism. Understand, Abu Osama said, you know, he ate from my black hands. He ate from these hands. He's not a racist. A person doesn't have to carry a card, Abu Osama. He doesn't have to be a card-carrying KKK member in order to be guilty of racism. Racism has taken on many different forms, man. Understand the levels of this. So let's talk about the different forms of racism. Let me give you some forms of racism. We already covered one, which is reversive racism, right? To say, hey, my people suffered too. You guys are not the only victims of slavery. You guys are not the only victims of, discrimination. You guys are not the only, victims of this and that. That's reversive racism. That's number one. Number two is what is reverse racism. That's number one. Number two is what's called aversive racism, which many Muslims are guilty of this. Aversive racism. And this is where you say, oh, we're all one ummah. We're all one ummah. Right? We're all one ummah. I don't see color. Right? We didn't grow up seeing color. We didn't. Like when you say you don't see color, then that means that you don't see me. This is called aversive racism, where you will dismiss the fact that race and race nuances exist under the guise that we're all just one. We're all one brotherhood, all one ummah. We like to say we're all one ummah. We are not all one ummah. Make no mistake about that. We are not all one ummah. That is a farce that we have been forced to accept. In a perfect world, yes, in a perfect world, we're all one ummah. But we ain't in a perfect world. And we ain't all one ummah. Make no mistake about that. You go to the Turkish masjid, you go to a Turkish masjid, right? But nobody would call them nationalistic. No one would say to a Turkish Muslim, you're nationalistic. You're nationalism, right? But the moment I say I love black people, and most of my time is spent with black people, people who look like me, most of my lectures are tailored to black people, I'm a black nationalist. But you can have a masjid called the Turkish masjid, right? And there's nothing nationalistic about that. MashaAllah. Nothing nationalistic about that. But I say I love African-American Muslims. I love my people, or I speak on behalf of my people, right? I'm a nationalist. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Yeah. So the first is reverse racism. When you flip it, we were victims of racism too. Number two is aversive racism, which many Muslims are guilty of. And this manifests in the form of comments such as, I don't see color, right? Right, with all the Turkish presidents on the wall, right? Very good, right? I don't see color, or the famous, we're all one ummah, or we're all just Muslims, right? We need to cut out all this color stuff and stop talking about color. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that we have created you from one male and one female. One male, one female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. He said, and we made you into different nations and tribes so that you may acknowledge one another. You may acknowledge one another. Nothing wrong with me acknowledging you as a Turkish Muslim, as a Saudi Muslim, as an Ethiopian Muslim, as a Somali Muslim, as an African American Muslim. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Li ta'arafu. Li ta'arafu. So you may acknowledge one another. You may know one another. In your own races, in your own culture, in your own space. Nothing wrong with that. Just this Ramadan, we had a multicultural Jumu'ah, and a multicultural iftar. We had food from all different types. And I said afterwards, because the community was between Indo-Pak, Arab, and African Americans. So we had mac and cheese, we had collard greens, we had desi food as well. You understand what I'm saying? And I said afterwards, because believe it or not, a lot of the Indo-Pak, Arab Muslims, they were eating African American food. They were eating African American food. They were eating fried chicken. They were eating mac and cheese. They were eating cabbage. And they actually liked it. And I said jokingly, I said, you know, we have literally married the two foods. And you can see there's nothing wrong with, you know, African American food. Nothing wrong with that. During Ramadan, you're African American. If you're a part of another culture, if you're a part of another community, then you're going to eat whatever that community is serving for iftar. They never regard you and what you eat and what's your favorite food. You know, none of that is ever regarded. But we'll all say we're all one ummah. We're not all one ummah. We don't respect the nuances that make us one ummah. We are not one ummah monolithically. We are one ummah that comprises of different cultures, nationalities, languages, foods, cultures, all of those things. You understand? All of those things. So there's the aversive racism, where you just try to erase it altogether and totally dismiss the person. Number three, there's inadvertent racism. Inadvertent racism. And this is where a person may believe that you don't know how, to function in life properly. You don't know how to raise your kids. So somebody might stop you and say, oh, you should tie her shoes. She's going to trip. Oh, you should do this with your kid because this is, oh, you should buy your kids a book, right? This is inadvertent racism, right? I had a Pakistani brother. I'm not going to say his name. I had a Pakistani brother say to my wife, the masjid was having like an outing, and they took the kids up to, this mountain, and they were spending the night up there. I don't do like outings. I don't spend a night in the forest. I don't do all of that. So my wife took some of the kids and went, on the trip. One of the brothers who was the head administrator of the masjid here in Delaware, I'm texting my wife, how are the kids? She's sending me pictures, they're, doing, catching snakes and doing stuff that they do while they were out. So my wife texted me, she said, when you come pick me up, I think you need to have a conversation with this particular brother. I said, what happened? She said, he said to me, in a roundabout way, he said to me, why didn't your husband come? So my wife says, well, he don't really do the outside or whatever the case may be. So he said, well, don't you think it would have been better for him to come and accompany his children, seeing as though black men don't spend enough time with their children? Right. This is what he said to my wife. Black men don't spend enough time with their children. I said, wow. My wife sent me the text. She said, yo, this is what he said to me. This is what is called inadvertent racism. They speak to you from a place of privilege without knowing your full circumstances. He said to my wife, don't you think it would have been better for your husband to come, seeing as though black men don't spend enough time with their children? This is what he said to my wife. Yeah, when I came to pick my wife up, I said, you? And I said to my wife, we all need to have a conversation right now. Let's have a conversation. He was like, oh, I got to go. Nah, you ain't got to do. No. Bring it here. Bring it over here. Let's have a seat. We need to have a conversation. First thing he led with was, I'm not racist. I said, no, you are racist. I said, the fact that you had to lead with the disclaimer that you're not racist is an indication that you are racist. I said, and that's cool. That's cool. You are who you are. I don't have a problem with that. I said, but don't ever disrespect my family like that. You can keep your comments. You can keep your stereotypes. You can keep all of that crap to yourself. You don't know my situation. You don't know my relationship with my children. But you have the audacity to sit from a place of privilege and say, oh, don't you think your husband should have came, considering that black men don't spend enough time with their children? How the hell, where did you get that from? Statistics prove that black men spend more time with their children than any other culture. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. Absolutely. My children are my life. What are you talking about? My children are my life, my entire life. Don't you ever talk to my family. I said, and what? I said, why didn't you say that to me? You knew I was coming up here to pick my wife up. I said, why didn't you say that to me? Why didn't you wait until I got here and said that to me? Why you wait till you catch my wife, corner my wife, and my wife is up here by herself and you say that to her by yourself? Why you ain't wait until I came up here and say that to me? So that's what's called inadvertent racism. Inadvertent racism. Then there is appropriation, right? Where you take black culture, right? This is what Abu Ibrahim was referring to. That young Indo-Pak, East Indian or East Asian Muslim children are appropriating black culture. They're dressing like blacks. They're, and I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that because that's wrong on many levels. To address them like that, to call them out like that, it's wrong. Nonetheless, appropriation of black culture. So now all of the Cheerios commercials, all of the commercials that we saw growing up that were so white, now have all hip hop songs in them. If you think about it, all of the, the Pop-Tart commercial, the Cheerios commercials, the Duncan Hines commercials, even the Mr. Clean commercials, all these commercials that we saw growing up now all have rap songs attached to them. The same rap songs when I was growing up in the 80s, we were told was ratchet music for animals, right? C. Dolores Tucker went on a campaign against, rappers like Tupac and other NWA and other rappers. And now those same rap songs, all of those rap songs, if you lived in the 80s, all of those same rap songs are now in commercials. They're appropriating black culture to sell their product to black people. You understand how that works? That is a form of racism. Appropriating black culture. All right, so that's another form of racism. Then number 4, there's structural racism, which is built into larger systems such as policing policies, right? Where if a person says Black Lives Matter, is somehow equivalent to being anti-cop or anti-government. Right? Taking a knee is somehow unpatriotic because you're taking a knee during the national anthem, right? These are structural racism. This is why Colin Kaepernick has been blackballed from the NFL. The same NFL that we continuously stop supporting the NFL. Stop supporting the NFL. I don't watch football anyway. I'm not a sports fan anyway, so it makes me it doesn't bother me one way or another. But at the same token, here again, you got to stand for something at some point. You blackball this guy because he decided to take a knee. He didn't raise a fist. He didn't speak out verbally. He just simply took a knee. Took a knee. You understand? Yes, the Ford commercials, all of that stuff, man. So this is what is called structural racism, and is built into a larger system such as policing policies, right? Educational system that targets children of color. Educational system. It's all in the educational system. Absolutely. The justice system that disproportionately incarcerates black people at astronomical rates in contrast to whites, and a political system. Now you got to have a driver's license. You can't just have an ID. You got to have a driver's license, right? Or the registration ID, to go and vote and register to vote. And they know that a lot of African Americans, in inner city African Americans, more impoverished, they don't have licenses. They don't have IDs. They don't have, they're not in the system like that. But this is what is called structural racism. And then there's blatant racism. And then lastly, there's hate. So that's 7 different types of racism. So for all of the brothers who said, oh, Abu Ibrahim is not a racist, then you got to understand how racism worked, man. I was very disappointed, man, when Abu Osama, did his, and maybe it was, maybe kind of jumped the gun. I don't know. I made some excuses. Abu Osama's my brother and I love him. I love him dearly. But that was wrong, man, to sit here and say that this guy is not a racist, to sit there and say that this guy's, then what the hell is he if he's not a racist? What is he? I mean, like, come on, man. At some point, man, we got to do away with the political correctness. I know that Islam, instructs us to, to give our brothers excuses and make excuses for, people and things like that. But as you said, wrong is wrong. Wrong is wrong, man. There's no way around that, man. You got to be a straight shooter in this joint, man. Like, I mean, it is what it is. I can't, I can't cut no corners with that, man. I ain't talking about him saying that the comment was wrong. He said he's not a racist. He ate food from my hands, my black hands. He ate food from my hands, using that as proof, as dalil, that he is not a racist. And what I'm saying is that racism takes on many different forms. He don't have to be a card-carrying KKK member, to perpetuate innocuous, racist, sentiments. It can be in other forms. Other forms. So let me explain how his comment, let's stop talking like we're black, let's talk in a decent way with decent manners. Let me tell you how that was in fact a racist comment, and that you have some racist sentiments with you. If you remember the hadith that is collected by Imam al-Bukhari in his book Al-Adab al-Mufrad, on the authority of Wasil al-Ahdab, where Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiyallahu anhu, he referred to Bilal ibn Abi Rabah as Ibn Sawda, the son of a black woman. You guys remember this hadith, right? Right. There are levels to racism. It's not just the person say, oh, I don't like black people, I hate black people, and that's racism. Nah, racism, I just gave you 7 different forms of racism. I just gave you 7 different forms of racism, if you guys are paying attention. Turn the TV off and focus. Turn the TV off. Stop trying to do multiple things in one time. Turn the TV off. Stop the conversation with sidebar conversation and listen. Focus. I just gave you 7 different layers of racism. So, in this particular hadith, Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, who was an Arab, he referred to Bilal ibn Abi Rabah, who was Habashi, who was from Ethiopia. He referred to him as the son of a black woman. There was some words between them. They had some words. And Abu Dharr, he said, Anta ibn Sawda. You are the son of a black woman. The Prophet ﷺ, he never said that Abu Dharr was a racist. He was nationalistic. Right? He never said. However, although the Prophet ﷺ didn't refer to Abu Dharr, no, it doesn't mean that Abu Dharr was a racist. Pay attention. Listen to what I'm saying. Abu Dharr was not a racist. But his statement came from a place. That's what I'm getting to. He said, the Prophet ﷺ never said that Abu Dharr was a racist because it didn't come from a place of malice. It didn't come from a place of hate and malice, right? It didn't come from a place of malice or hate or disdain, right? However, the Prophet ﷺ did link Abu Dharr's comment to a culture, a larger system, a culture of pre-Islamic systematic discrimination and marginalization of people of color. Understand? The Prophet ﷺ said to Abu Dharr, A'ayyarta ummahu, did you insult his mother? Did you insult this man's mother? And Abu Dharr said, yes. The Prophet ﷺ said, Innaka mri'in fika jahiliyyah. You are a man who still has traits of jahiliyyah. You still have traits of jahiliyyah. What did the Prophet ﷺ mean by that? What did he mean by that? Here again, implication. Context is everything. What it implies means everything. What did the Prophet ﷺ mean by that? He didn't refer to Abu Dharr as a racist. However, Abu Dharr's comment came from a place similar to Abu Ibrahim. When you said, let's stop talking like we're black. Let's talk decent with manners. It comes from a place. That is what I'm referring to. It comes from a place, man. It didn't come from anywhere. Latent racism. Hidden racism. It comes from a place. The Prophet ﷺ said, Innaka mri'in fika jahiliyyah. You are an individual who still has traits of jahiliyyah. He linked Abu Dharr's comment to a pre-Islamic system of racism, of discrimination, of marginalization of people that look like Bilal. You understand? It came from a place. It came from a place. Understand where that came from. The Prophet linked his comment. What was going on in Jahiliyyah for the Prophet ﷺ to make this reference? Why did the Prophet ﷺ say that you are an individual who still has traits of Jahiliyyah? What was the Prophet referring to? Why did he use Jahiliyyah as a reference point for how wrong that statement was? Even the Quran captures glimpses of the racism, pre-Islamic racism, and a system of marginalization of a people and discrimination against a people because of the color of their skin or because of their social status. That is alive and well today in the Muslim community. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala captures that even in the Quran. Some of the elite from Quraysh came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Arabs still don't like Africans. In earlier times, Arabs didn't like Africans. Arabs still don't like Africans. The elite came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said that if you want us to follow you, then you got to get rid of these slaves. You got all these slaves following you. Bilal ibn Abi Rabah, Khabab ibn Arat, Suhaib, Rumi, Salman al-Farisi. You got all these people following you. If you want us to follow you, you got to get rid of these people. We're not going to be following you and you got these people around you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed ayat number 6, surah number 6, ayat 52 from surah to An'am. From Surah to An'am, Allah says, وَلَا تَطْرُدِ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ. Allah says to the Prophet ﷺ, and do not send away those who call on their Lord morning and evening seeking his face. Not upon you is anything of their account, not upon them is anything in your account, so that you chase them away. And in that case, you would be of the wrongdoers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, do not chase them away because the elite asked you to. No, we're not doing that. So while some might say, I don't think Abu Ibrahim is a racist, it doesn't erase the fact that his comment came from a place of disdain for black culture, black people. When you say, let's stop talking like we're black. Let's stop talking like we're black. We're better than that. Right? Let's have decent manners. It comes from a place of disdain. It comes from a place of disdain. Right? Similar to the statement of Abu Dhar. Number 3, neglecting the social responsibilities of public speaking. There's a social responsibility that comes with being a public speaker that in recent times, many Muslim leaders and clerics have lost sight of. To stand in a public place and blatantly condemn an entire culture based upon your own personal biases, founded upon a system that was designed to discriminate against them due to the color of their skin, is preposterous and foreign to the practices of Islam. You understand? Abu Ibrahim, I hope you understand, man. You got out in public and you said in public, yelling at the top of your lungs, telling your people not to act like black people. It was socially irresponsible. Socially irresponsible. Right? To stand in a public place and blatantly condemn an entire culture. All black people? Let's not act like all black people. Let's not act like black people. It's ridiculous, man. It's a social irresponsibility. You were irresponsible socially, which you never apologize for that, and you don't necessarily need to apologize to us for that. That's a responsibility before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You grab a microphone and you stand in front of people. There's a certain level of mas'uliyah. There's a responsibility that comes along with that. You don't get to just jump out in public, man, and just say what you want to say and think that there's not going to be any pushback, any backlash. Man, it's crazy. So when the Prophet ﷺ condemned a particular acts of people, all right, he never condemned it, a group of people, right? When the Prophet ﷺ condemned acts of jahiliyyah, it wasn't connected to race. It wasn't connected to a race of people, but to cultural practices that, contradict Islam, that were either immoral or, part of the pagan system of oppression. The Prophet ﷺ, he got on the minbar many times, many occasions, and he addressed behaviors. He addressed behaviors. He never condemned an entire culture of people. He never condemned an entire culture of people. What you did was you did what is called culture shaming. And we need to get to that. So number 4 is the social irresponsibility. And number 5, culture shaming. And this is the environment that we live in right now. Culture shaming. We shame an entire culture because of our disdain for them. Not because their practices and their behaviors go against the Quran and the Sunnah, but for our own personal disdain and dislike for those people, right? The Prophet ﷺ never, condemned an entire culture. If in fact something was wrong, then he would address the wrong behavior, but never, when he was eating, he was sitting with his companions and one of them was eating lizard. And one of his companions offered him some lizard. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, nah, I'm good on that. And then he asked the Prophet ﷺ, is it haram? The Prophet said, no, it's not haram. It's just not the food of my people. I don't want it. He didn't condemn it because he didn't like it. Like when we don't like something, we'll make it haram. We'll make it haram. We'll say very quickly, that's haram because you don't like it. Not that it goes against the Quran and the Sunnah, but because personally I don't like it, so I'm going to make it haram. So now we're legislating rules of what is halal and what is haram. So we'll say to somebody, and people from other cultures are very quick to do that. Oh, that's haram. It's like, what do you mean that's haram? What do you mean that is haram? I don't understand. I remember I was in New York on 96th Street making salah, and I came in late for the salat. I caught the last rak'ah of Maghrib, and then I stood up to pray by myself, and then some people came in late, and they made me the imam while I was already praying, which is permissible, and they began to pray behind me. After it was over, the Arab brother who was sitting there watching it, he was like, that's haram, and he started speaking in Arabic, and I'm like, I'm speaking English to him because I want him to say really what he want to say in Arabic. He's like, that's haram. I'm like, what do you mean it's haram? I don't understand. He was like, you can't go from praying by yourself to being the imam of somebody. I said, no, you can. What are you talking about? He's like, that's not from the Sunnah. That's haram. And he's raising his voice in the masjid. And I'm just like, why are you yelling? Why are you raising your voice? I said, you're saying something is haram. I said, give me a second and let me give you the dalil. Let me give you the... And he's like, no, I don't want to hear it. I'm like, I'm trying to tell you that it's not haram. He never wanted to hear what I had to say. Because the only thing that mattered was his truth. Sometimes our truth is the only truth. I don't care about your truth. I don't care about what you feel. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. But here again, everything is haram because you don't like it, because you disagree with it. Now it's haram, right? The Prophet ﷺ didn't dismiss the culture of a people due to their disdain, due to his disdain of their practices. That would essentially dismiss them as a people. Islam accommodates every culture, all right? Every culture, all right? It is us who believe that we have a monopoly on Islam that we begin to define what is Islamically sound and what is not. Islam accommodates, there's a Islamic maxiom, right? It's called Qawa'id, right? Qawa'id, a maxiom in Islam, al-urf muhakkama, that the urf, the cultural traditions of a people take precedence. That is the gauge, the standard. The cultural practices of a people is the standard. Unless it conflicts with Islam. If it conflicts with Islam, then of course Islam takes precedence. But how we dress, how the slang that we use, there's nothing wrong with that. And then you got to ask yourself, why do young Indo-Pak Arab children why do they find themselves so inclined towards African American, Afro Caribbean culture? That they talk, they dress, and they have the swag of a people from another culture other than their own. Why? You have to ask yourself why. And the reason is because they are British by culture, but Pakistani and Arab by ethnicity. They're British. They're not Pakistani. They're not Bengali. They're British by culture and Pakistani and Arab by ethnicity. They identify, much like, Asians and Caucasians here in America, they identify with a culture that unites them with a larger group, minus the cultural nuances that involve exclusion of a people based upon superficial issues like race and the color of your skin. They tired of that. These young people, they are sick of that stuff, man. They are sick of that stuff. So they incline towards black culture, hip hop culture, which is broader than just black culture. It accommodates anybody who understands and, gets down like that. Yes, you're Sudanese by ethnicity, but you're American by culture. And unfortunately, people like Abu Ibrahim can't relate to the youth. The youth don't relate to people like you because you steady trying to pigeonhole them into, let's get back to our own cultural roots. And the youth is like, man, come on, man, miss me with all of that. Ain't nobody trying to go back to being no racist, hypocritical, Pakistani, Bengali, Muslim. Ain't nobody trying to go back that far, man. Nah, this is where we are. I'm British. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm British. I'm American. And they have that swag and they love that. And instead of meeting them where they are, you're trying to pull them away from that by culture shaming an entire culture of people. This young guy, Jay Dean from Dean Squad, he made they made a song or whatever. And on one of his songs, he said that if I was an Arab nasheed singer, or if I was an Arab singer, it would be all good. But because I'm black and I rap, now it's haram and you got an issue with it. And there's so much truth in that. So much truth. That we culture shame. When black people do it, it's haram and a'udhu billah. But when Arabs do it, it's all good. We pray nasheeds at school, right? I work at an Islamic school. We play nasheed at school, which is equivalent to music because you got the beat behind it, you got the song, the singing, and the long, come on, man. But because it's part of Arab culture, it's acceptable. It's acceptable. At weddings, at schools, at ceremonial, events, graduations, we play nasheed anywhere. And it's accepted because it's Arab and Desi culture. But you take a rapper from Toronto, from Canada, who's African American, he's rapping alongside it. And I'm not condoning that, but there's a lot of truth in what he said. He said that if I was an Arab and I was rapping, it would be cute, right? It would be cute. It's all good. But because I'm black and I'm rapping, it's haram. And that's real talk. I felt that. Real talk, man. And this is what is pushing our youth away because they can see the double standards. Thank you. That's a double standard. One thing works for one culture and it doesn't work for the other culture. It's a double standard. And the Prophet ﷺ didn't deal with double standards. He said, if my daughter Fatima stole, I would cut her hand off. There's no double standards when it comes to that. And I'm not condoning the music. What I'm saying is the point that he's making, that when an Arab is rapping or singing, it's all good. But when an African American does it and it now becomes a part of black culture, now it's haram. And believe it or not, everything in black culture is haram. I was taught as an African American convert to Islam, everything that was connected to my culture was haram because it was under the guise of imitating the kuffar. And where did this imitating the kuffar come from? Came from Arab scholars who do not have a clue where we came from and the strides that we made to arrive at Islam, and to only be told that everything connected to your culture is haram. Everything. Because it's imitating the kuffar. Everything. Imitating the kuffar. So you just dismiss my entire culture. This is what is called culture shaming. So I can't get my hair cut a certain way, not because it's haram, but because it's imitating the kuffar. Because it's imitating the kuffar. Right? I can't dress a certain way. I can't dress this way or that way. Right? Until the point that we have an identity crisis. As African American Muslims, we have an identity crisis because our culture has been shamed. Culture shaming. So when you say, Abu Ibrahim, let's stop talking like we're black, you are shaming an entire culture because of your own personal disdain for that culture and for the people of that culture, not because it is haram or somehow going against the Quran and the Sunnah. You understand how that works? We culture shame African Americans. Everything about their culture is haram. Everything. The way they get their hair cut, the way they dress, the baseball caps. You understand how that works? Everything. We are ashamed to walk in a masjid with a pair of jeans on. Ashamed to walk in the masjid, with a t-shirt and the shorts on. Meanwhile, everybody in the masjid got a t-shirt and shorts. But you, on the other hand, you are not allowed to dress like that. Right. We shame an entire culture. It's sad, man. It really is. It really is, man. Hoodies, Timbs, anything that we wear that is part of our culture, we are not allowed to engage in it because it imitates the kuffar. Well, guess what? I come from a culture of kuffar. I converted to Islam. All of my references are rooted in what you call jahiliyyah. Is that fair to me? When and how am I supposed to develop my identity? When? When am I who is supposed to cultivate and nurture my identity as an African American convert? Who? When everything in my life is referenced from where I came from. I came from jahiliyyah. But to you, jahiliyyah is unacceptable. Meanwhile, your youth are appropriating black culture. And that's what makes you mad. That is what upsets you. It upsets you to see young East Indian, Pakistani, Bengali. It burdens you to see East Indians in Britain, donning a certain dress, or like he said that when they're in front of their children, when they're in front of their parents, they talk like regular, regular Desi kids. But then when they're around their friends, they come with this gang talk and these, this cool talk. And I mean, the thing is that if you want to shame a culture, then you can start right there with your own culture. What about all of the pedophilia that goes on in Pakistani culture? What about all of the rape and molestation that go on in Pakistani culture? How about that? But you would never say, let's not act like, pedophiles, or let's not act like this or that, even though you know it goes on in your culture. Even though you know it goes on in your culture, but you would never shame your culture for things that are actually haram. Things that are actually haram. But you would never shame your culture for that. Meanwhile, you'll paint your culture as if you're perfect. You said, let's stop acting like black people. Let's stop talking like that. Let's talk decent. As if to say that your culture is decent. Your culture is riddled in bribery and nepotism and and pedophilia. Your culture is riddled with that stuff. You gotta be kidding me. Let's talk like decent people. Let's not talk like Let's not talk like black people. You gotta be kidding me. You want to shame somebody's culture? Start with your own damn culture. Cause y'all got a ton of skeletons in y'all closet. You gotta be kidding me, man. But here you go trying to shame somebody else's culture. Gotta be kidding me, man. All them young people in the UK, what else do they have? They go to the masjid, they go to the mosque, they either confronted with the hardcore Salafi version of Islam, who nobody want to be a part of that. They ain't got a pot to piss in the window to throw it out of. They got no financial resources, no political resources. You don't see people flourishing coming out of those communities, nothing. Just kalam, all talk. And then on top of all of that, then you got the other extreme of, the traditional Desi communities, trying to pull you back into this cultural, traditional practice of Islam. And they ain't with that either. They tired of this and they tired of that. What do they have? Meanwhile, you telling them, stop talking like black people. Why don't you try appealing to them and understanding where they coming from and meet them where they are? And perhaps you'll have a better turnout. Just imagine if there was a new convert, an Afro-Caribbean convert who was, in that crowd or in that masjid, and you said, hey, let's stop talking like we're black. How the hell you think that would make him feel? You just shamed his whole culture. It's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous, man. You want to shame somebody's culture, man? You need not look any further than your own culture. You need not look any further than your own culture. So we culture shame under the prohibition of imitating the kuffar, right? And the thing about it is that every culture has things that are ratchet. Every culture has things that are ratchet, man. Every culture has that. You address the behaviors, man. You don't just broad brush a whole entire culture as if to shame the whole entire culture. Then you double back and say, well, I was talking about how they have their pants. Then address that. If you're talking about how then your pants sagging off your behind, and okay, then address that. But don't label that as black culture, because not every black person wears their pants hanging off their behind. I have 11 sons. None of my sons wear their pants hanging off of their behind. None of them. Not all black kids wear their pants hanging off their behind. So this is what I wanted to present, man. I really, man, it's really a shame that instead of me, addressing something probably a little bit more important in our ummah, we got to address these issues, man. But, we got to go through it, man. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all. And Abu Ibrahim, I prayed that Allah subhanahu, I'm not saying that you should stop giving dawah. I don't know how effective you are in your own community. I don't know. But what I do know is that the next time you grab a microphone and you step out in a public sphere, or you step out on a public platform to give dawah, then you need to be more responsible with yourself. And as for whether or not you're a racist or whatever the case, I'm not getting into the whole name calling. Your comments were racist. Your comments were racist. Your comments were racist, without a doubt. As for you, I don't know you personally, so I'm not going to say you're racist. But your comments was riddled with racism. Saturated with racism. And I don't know how else you want us to view you. And then you double back and supposedly give an apology. And then you end your apology with victimizing. I'm tired of black people always playing the victim of racism when other people were victims of racism. And, I'm hoping, for the young brothers and sisters in the UK, man, I pray that you guys find some solace, some peace. You guys have to get behind, brothers who, are standing up for what's correct. Who those brothers are, I don't endorse nobody. So I ain't into the whole get behind this brother, I ain't endorsing nobody. But what I am saying is that truth stands out clearly from falsehood. And you should get behind the truth, wherever that truth is. Yeah, I'm getting old, man. The ummah is aging me, man. It's stuff like this that keeps, adding more age to me. But it's all good, man. It comes with the territory. This is what I wanted to present. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina muhammed wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.